Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ryan, and I'm not too sure how to intro this video because this is a blind that was sent in by a viewer. So I don't know what any of these are. I don't know if there's a theme. I don't know if it's rye, bourbon, single malts, American single. No idea. Not a clue. So there may be a theme, there may not be a theme, but anytime that a viewer sends in a blind to me, I will taste them, rank them, and then we'll reveal what they are. So I have an unopened email that lists what all of these are for me. Last time we did this, it was actually a pretty crazy blind. I think the last one was the had like the Thomas H. Handy in it, which is obviously Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. This is some like top shelf stuff in there. I think actually no. DMC sent me. There was after that one, DMC sent in a blind that included. I mean, it was a 10-year blind, so it had like the Michter's 10-year rye. It had Eagle Rare in it. I mean, there were some pretty heavy hitters. In 1924 from Old Forester. So they tend to be a bit of a mixed bag of really cool things. So I love when viewers do this. This particular blind was sent in from David, one of our longtime supporters here on the channel. So thanks, David. Appreciate these pours. Well, I appreciate them now. Maybe by the time I get to the end of them, I won't appreciate them because maybe you're trolling me. I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and pour these A through D, and we'll get cranking. All right, these are all poured. Now, when I edit this video, obviously, I'm going to know what these have been. So I will make sure to put on the screen, like right here, the names of everything that I'm tasting in real time. So you'll know what I'm tasting as I'm tasting it, not knowing what it is. Sound good? Let's get started right here with Glass A. And I don't know if there was a specific order that I should be doing these in, but I just assumed A through D is the way that you wanted me to taste these, David. So that's how I'm going to do it today. Notice on this one, I get peanuts front and center. Some peanut action, but there's also like a spicy peppercorn note in here too. I think of a peanut brittle, you know, you get like the crunchy toffee with the nuts inside of it. That's kind of what's going on here on the nose with a little bit of a subtle peppercorn spice to it. That's kind of nice, I like that. Let's try it, cheers. On the palate, my first thoughts are, I'm wondering what the ratios are here. Because this is either a high rye bourbon, or it's a rye with a substantial amount of corn in the mash. One of the two. It's kind of a middle ground there. That nuttiness definitely comes through on the palate. There's plenty of sweet peanut in there. The oak is not like big and bold. It's just sort of this subtle underlying factor throughout the entirety of the sip from start to finish. Just kind of there as framework to hold everything else up. Never the star of any part of the sip. But it is sweet and nutty up front, and then it transitions into some of these like, I think of yellow fruits and some peppercorn, which makes me think that I'm leaning more towards a like high corn mashed rye. But maybe it's a bourbon with a lot of rye in the mash too. I'm not too sure. I'm also getting like really late into the finish, just a little subtle note of honey as well, like a little honeycomb. I like that. Yeah, it's not big and bold or anything, but it's just got some really nice notes to it. I think I would probably fall off the log and say this is a rye with a fair amount of corn in the mash. And that corn, I think, is what's giving me that slippery, sticky, you know, stewed sweetness in there too. And I'm leaning more towards, I want to say either Wild Turkey or Jim Beam product, just off of those notes alone. Because I do get a lot of that nuttiness. I think of peanut brittle a lot when I sip on things like Wild Turkey 101, or if I'm sipping on a Jim Beam product in particular. But yeah, that's quite tasty. Good like palate opener. Nothing crazy, big, bold, or out of the ordinary. Just good. I gotta take notes or else I'll forget what I've been tasting and thinking about these. I'm very forgetful. I can't keep all four of these straight in my head alone, so I gotta write it down. All right, moving on to Glass B here. What we got? This one definitely smells more rye on the nose. A lot of ethanol. I think like a dry erase marker is one of the first things that comes to mind. A lot of people are put off by that immediately. I am not, because that note to me can play well with other things, especially things like citrus and fruit notes. So that's not an automatically displeasing thing for me, although for some people it is. I get like a really light fruit. I think of pear on the nose. And I used to eat a lot of pears when I was a kid. I liked pears. And there's a little like a pine note in there as well. Marker, pear, and pine. Let's try it. The palate brings a lot more, you know, sweet bourbon notes to it that I didn't expect on the nose. The nose didn't really let on to those notes very well. But on the palate, especially late into the palate, I get some butterscotch and a little more nuttiness too. I get that characteristic sort of rye spiciness right up front on the palate. But the peppercorn quickly runs away and the mint notes subside pretty rapidly, and it takes me into a lot more of those sweet butterscotchy nutty notes that I would expect to get on a bourbon. That's a really interesting sip. It's like a twofer. It's like a 2-in-1. The finish, I will say, as it hangs there for a while, is kind of dry though. It's a dry sweetness. But again, this doesn't like bring a ton of heat or a ton of spice or a ton of sweet. This is like a really subtle sip all the way through. Nothing about it is like swinging for the fences or going above and beyond. It's just like, hey, I'm this and I'm good, and then I'm this and I'm good, and finally I'm this and I'm pretty good too. Turkey rye. Turkey rye. Let's move on. Next up, nose of this is cantaloupe and honey. A lot of honey. Wow. A little bit of that pine note in there as well. I really like that nose. That's very inviting. Let's try it. Man, that's just a good like Hallmark rye right there. It's got a wonderful spicy quality to it, but it's not big and bold or over the top. But there's just tons of honey throughout all of that. These mature yellow fruits, that cantaloupe note coming through quite strong, start to finish. A nice little subtle oak note as well in the end. I don't think that any of these have been overwhelming on the palate in any way, shape, or form so far. Yeah, in a lot of ways, this reminds me of some Whistle Pig ryes I've had. Yeah, I think this is what I would categorize as a sip that's all about solid execution on things that we've come to expect from a decent rye whiskey. There's no crazy finishing process going on here that I can detect. There's no hiding youth with high proof in here either. It's just a really solid, well-executed rye whiskey. Boom. Easy peasy. Let's move on to the final sip. Glass D here. You know, the first thing that came to mind when I got my schnoz over this Glen was a cherry cough drop. Sort of a medicinal but sweet quality to it. And I want to say on the nose, it makes me think of mead too. Which I think mead is delicious. When the occasion calls for it, I can always get down with a mead. There's this cherry mead I used to grab every now and then when I'd see it on shelves called the Zombie Slayer. Zombie Slayer, Zombie Killer. One of the two. But it was always really good. This reminds me of that on the nose. Cool, let's try it. You know, that's kind of peculiar because those cherry notes that we were getting on the nose that were pretty front and center, not front and center on the palate. They come in the finish. The cherry kind of disappears after the nose, front of the palate, it dips and it's gone, comes back, tail end of the palate, into the finish. That's where that cherry medicinal cough drop note kind of returns to the experience. So it's sort of like the framing, but what's in the middle? That's what I'm trying to dial in here. Definitely tastes like a rye, but there's almost like a flat cola note in there on the front end of the palate. Think of like Coca-Cola that's lost its fizz. It's not as spicy or punchy. You get that sweetness in there too, but it almost feels a little flat. My dog's outside. She's just staring in. She's standing in my window well, just staring in at me, like being a real creeper. Can I help you? There's something you need. And there's a sort of dry tannic note too on the tail end of the palate going into the finish. You feel it sort of drying out the roof of your mouth just a little bit. All in all, very tasty though. Oh. Okay, I'm going to hit these again and sort of solidify my ranking and my feelings on these, and then I'll let you know how I scored them, how I ranked them. Sound good? Kind of tough. Okay, I finalized my rankings here. So, last place, gonna go to B. Alright, I didn't dislike it. You know, we got some of that butterscotch, nuttiness, sort of the 2-for-1 experience there, which was fine. But for my palate today, I think I like the others better. Third place, Glass D. It's a Glass D taking third place. This was the, the cherry cough drop, sort of medicinal, had some mead on the nose. Thought of like flat cola, but then that cherry came back around big and bold late into the finish. Second place is going to go to Glass A. This is the one that we said was, peanut brittle, but then had some spice and honeycomb in there too. Really liked that. I think first place is the no-nonsense Glass C, which was just a straight-up well-executed rye whiskey. Makes me think of Northeast, United States distillate. Now, that's my ranking. Now, the goal here is not to guess what these are, but I might kind of take a couple of stabs here. I don't know what any of these are, and I'm not certain on any of my inclinations here, but I am inclined with a couple of these sips to make maybe a bit of a prediction here. I'll just tell you what these made me think of. I think A made me think of Jim Beam, right? It's that peanut brittle note in there specifically that made my mind jump to Beam. And then Glass B made me think of turkey, wild turkey. I don't know if it is or it isn't. That's sort of my inclination. Glass C, which took first place, made me think of Whistle Pig and some other sort of Northeast United States rye whiskeys. Really classic. So if it's not one of those, I feel like it is at least inspired by those classic Northeast American ryes. And I don't have a clue about Glass D. I don't have an inclination there. Nothing about it really pulled me towards a specific distillery. So anyways, that's that. Let's go ahead and pull up the email and reveal what these were. Okay, so I didn't do too bad here. A couple of my guesses are like spot on. So let's start with my fourth place. So my fourth place was Glass B. I said maybe Wild Turkey. It's rare breed. It's rare breed rye. So we kind of nailed that one, right? I'll take that. So that's a rare breed rye. It's 112.2 proof. Cool. My third place, this is the one I couldn't place. I didn't know what this was. But my third place was Redwood Empire Rocket Top Bottled in Bond. So it's the Rocket Top rye from Redwood Empire. And you know, I've only ever had that once. I've only had the Rocket Top once. So that's probably why I couldn't place that one. That makes sense. I've had a lot of Redwood Empire stuff. I've got a lot of Redwood Empire on my shelf. But I don't have the Rocket Top, and the only time I've ever had it was when I did the full distillery review. I did like quick sips of everything. So that's why I didn't immediately know what that was, right? My second place was Glass A. I said Jim Beam. Yeah, Knob Creek Rye, 7-year, 100 proof. 7-year rye, 100 proof. I really like that. Yeah, I mean, I tend to get down with Beam. I know Beam can be sort of hit or miss for a lot of folks. It's one of those things where you either love it or you hate it. You know, you ever have one of those friends growing up? I had one of those friends growing up where it's like he's unapologetic about who he is. And so half of my friends loved him and half of my friends literally hated him. They were like, if he is coming, I am not coming. I cannot stand him. You know what I mean? So I feel like we've all known people like that where they're so big and bold and upfront about who they are at all times that you either are like, yeah, I get down with that, or you're like, no, I absolutely do not, and I cannot stand him. So I feel like a lot of people feel that way about Jim Beam products. I happen to get down with Beam products. I mean, I got a lot of the Booker's stuff right there. So that took second place. In my first place, I cannot say that I'm super surprised by seeing this. I said maybe Whistle Pig, inspired by Northeast American rye whiskeys. This is Pinhook 6-year Vertical Series Rye, 118.5 proof, bottle 28 out of 203. Which year was this Vertical Series Rye? If it's 118, 6-year, because the 2024 is an 8-year-old at 108 proof. So I'm guessing it's just maybe the 2022 Pinhook Vertical Series Rye. I'm gonna guess that's what it was. But either way, that was a solid lineup of some, most of them really approachable rye whiskeys. So if anything, Knob Creek 7-year 100 proof rye got second place. You could go out and grab that bottle pretty much anywhere. Same thing with Rare Breed, you can find that anywhere too. None of these were bad. Redwood Empire Rocket Top, that one would be, it depends on your state, how available that bottle is going to be, but either way you can find it online pretty easily for little to no markup. The Pinhook Vertical Series Rye, it depends on the year, the price changes as far as I understand it, because I mean some of them are going to be 8 years, some of them are going to be 6 years, 7 years, etc. So the pricing is going to move around a little bit. But you're looking at probably between $70 and $90 for that rye. And that's MGP juice. But that's what took first place, was the Pinhook. So, hey, thank you so much, David. I really appreciate your generosity today. Very kind to you. Let me know if you've had any of these, how you think you would have ranked them yourself. Maybe put that in the comment section below, how you think in your brain, this is how I probably would have ranked them. I'll take 2 out of 4 for you know, being able to place the distillate. I'll count that a win today. We'll take our first place, and we'll say cheers, my friends. Thanks for supporting the video today. Hey, make sure you check out our Discord, or even get involved in the Patreon group. The base tier is just $1 a month. Super cheap, super easy. And that funds the bottles that we get to buy and review every month on the channel, but also gives you access to some of the cool stuff that we're doing. Our Patreon group, for example, and this was any Patreon member. You don't have to be a $25 tier or anything like that, but anyone was able to just hop into our bottle share. And we've done 2 nights of it so far, because I think we have like 11 whiskeys to get through, so we're pacing ourselves. But everybody who signed up for the event basically sent out samples. You receive like 10 different whiskeys or 11 different whiskeys. We start sitting down together and go through, and we hung out this past week for like 2.5 hours in Discord, just chatting and drinking some whiskeys and enjoying each other's company. So check it out. It's fun people. Everybody's got great contributions in there, so I really appreciate our community. But cheers, my friends. May you live richly and get better with age, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.